a little different because his idea was to go from place to place to see what happened really, you know. So what happens really in the in the countries, etc., and you have those images that were used by also by Chris Marker in his film on Medvedkin, you know. So the images of a reality which really denies, you know, the official truth, you know, as you see, you know, those buildings, you know, which are completely devastated, you know, and these gardens, you know, with just a dead tree, you know, and those bureaucrats, you know, doing nothing, etc., you know. And so in this case, you know, you can say there is a confrontation between pravda, meaning official truth, you know, and what happens really in the countries, you know. But in a way, Vertov is interested never in what pravda says, you know, and in opposing the reality, to the official truth. He composes his poem of communism, you know, and in the poem, even the tricks, you know, are part of the poem. And it is true that he could also, you know, we could also have gone to the country to see how does it work exactly, you know. But it's true that it is not his problem, you know. Well, because he's supposed to be a militant, you know, etc. But he's first a poet, you know. He's first a poet. So rather, you know, than going to the countries and see what really happens, but he collects, you know, so images coming from all the Soviet Union, you know, from the tundra, from Petersburg or from Ukraine, etc., you know. And well, what is communist is never what the power says, you know, nor what you know what happened in the country. What is communist is this link, you know, he makes between all those fragments. So of course it's a quite different attitude, and you can think that Medvedkin was more politically honest, probably. But it is true also that the likes of Medvedkin, you know, after you had to make films of pure propaganda, which Vertov never did, you know.
But was the film used as propaganda?
Huh?
Was the film used as propaganda?
And
the movie camera?
No, I think the film was very much criticized. You know, the film was very much criticized. It was the end. You know, it was really the end of the great avant-garde dream. It was 1929. You know, so the moment where people say, "Oh, you know, away with all this formalism." So people, you know, criticizing all those fragments, and you see the legs of a dancer and a machine, a typewriter. It means nothing. It's not real life. Okay.
Yeah, you want to do that, and I can sit down. If you want to choose your own, that is fine with me. Okay? Please.
Let's keep the vision. You answer the questions.
Okay. So there are two questions. I don't know who three questions. I don't know what first.
Just choose.
Just a comment. Well, there are great similarities between Men with a Movie Camera and Kino Eye, for example. One difference is that Kino Eye is actually prescriptive. It operates almost in the manner of the kind of database. It shows you how to do things, and certainly there is the prescription how to do things in a proper communist way, but it's a very pragmatic and very didactic kind of film. And so, again, while there are those complicities, it operates very, very differently.
Okay, I don't see it as pragmatic. I don't see it as pragmatic at all. You know, but I know you, but you know the film better than I do. So you may.
An important, very short question, if I may. But is there nonetheless, in the way you define communism, a certain de facto limitation? I totally agree with you. The beauty is how you have these purely formal echoes. The link is mostly gestures, formal gestures repeating themselves. A gesture of a worker, a gesture of that, a dance. But is it that nonetheless, in order to produce this communist effect, a certain very vulgar limits has to be posited at the end of, at the level of content? For example, I will be consciously totally vulgar. Could you also do the same film where you have somebody making bread, then you, this echoes in a scene of a political prisoner being tortured, his balls being cut off, you know what I mean? Can you do, that was, I would really admire. If you can do a communist film where all this is then, you have a common dance, somebody is tortured, somebody is starving, the cow is eating meat in the hunger in Ukraine, somebody is eating his own child, and will you say this is the communist dream? You know what I mean? So there are some censorship.
Yes. There certainly are limitations, you know. But there are also forms of strange compromise, you know. Because, for instance, you know, in a sequence of the Kino Eye, you know, you have a sequence, you know, with which about, you know, people about people sleeping in the streets, you know, and cocaine addicts, you know, and drunkards, etc., etc. And this is a very, very strange episode, you know, because you see the young pioneers, you know, want to educate, you know, all those people who are drinking beer and doing nothing than drinking beer and smoking and smoking, you know, the whole time, you know. And so there is the affirmation, you know, and so I would say there is a performance of the young communists, you know, but apparently it changes nothing, you know. So at the end you see the same people, you know, drinking and smoking, you know, in the same courtyard, you know, as if there were two logics intermingled, you know, the logics of the old and the new, you know, of course, you oppose the old and the new, and at the same time the old and the new play their part, they play their performance, and of course it's true that certain performances, you know, of course, don't exist, which means that, Vertov doesn't see them, Eisenstein doesn't see them, you know, of course, nobody films what happens, you know, in the Lubyanka, things like that, no, that's true.
It's not part of the communist dance.
No, it's no part. So there were two questions, and the other question too. Yeah. Okay. So,
thank you for your talk. Hearing Wolfgang Slavoj, I was thinking of McLuhan's description of the relation of humans and machines. He said that humans were McLuhan. Okay. He said that humans were a servo mechanism of the machine. He went so far as to say that humans were the sexual organs of machines. In Veritov's film, I think we could almost flip that around and say that the machine has become the sexual organs of humans. All that sexual ornamentation, all that divine wastage, all devoted to touching a machine. So we have to ask what function this machine serves. Is it some riddance mechanism for getting rid of sexuality? And if so, at what point, perhaps, is a political idea, communist subject formed thereby?
Well, I don't think that the machine, you know, I don't think that the machines in this case, you know, play a sexual part, you know. I don't think that they are the sexual organ of humanity in this case. And it is true that there is this kind of exchange, you know, so the eye becomes a machine to the extent that the machine becomes an eye, that there is kind of, that there is a kind of pupil of the machine, you know, and the camera always shows the kind of pupil, you know. But it is not the same thing. It is not a sexual gaze. You know?
What is the meaning then of going back and forth between the beauty parlor scenes, the grooming scenes, and so forth and so on, and the regularity and movement of the machine?
Well, I think.
Why is that juxtaposition?
Well, the supposition because precisely, you know, all movements, you know, share the same, the same unanimity of life. You know, it is exactly the same